Thanksgiving, a time for gratitude, family, and, if you were Daniel, public humiliation. The evening had started well enough. The turkey was juicy, the wine was flowing, and Daniel was deep in a conversation about football with his brother-in-law. He should have known it was too peaceful to last. Then it happened. "Come on, you guys should be thankful," Vanessa, his dear wife, announced to the table, a smug smirk stretching across her face. "At least you have something exciting going on. Can't say the same for what happens in our bedroom." Silence. A glorious, agonizing silence. Then scattered chuckles. Some guests stared at their mashed potatoes like they contained the secrets of the universe. Others took long, unnecessary sips of wine. Daniel? He sat there blinking, wondering if anyone else had just witnessed his wife metaphorically drop-kicking his dignity into the stuffing. He could have said something, he should have said something, but what was the point? Calling her out would only make things worse. Instead, he took a slow sip of his drink, pretending her words rolled off his back like water off a duck. Inside, though, inside, something was changing. Because this wasn't just a joke. It wasn't just a careless remark tossed out in the heat of conversation. It was calculated. And worst of all, it wasn't even the first time. Vanessa had been taking these little jabs at him for years, always in front of an audience, friends, family, co-workers, and he, being the ever-accommodating husband, had let it slide. Every single time. But not this time. The dinner continued, plates were cleared, and Vanessa went about the rest of the evening as if she hadn't just annihilated her husband's self-respect like a seasoned gladiator in the arena of passive-aggressive insults. Daniel helped clean up, moving like a robot, his mind replaying the scene over and over. Once the last guest left and the front door clicked shut, the house fell into eerie silence. He stood at the sink, rinsing a plate, waiting for Vanessa to say something, anything. An apology, a joke, even an awkward acknowledgement of what she had done. Instead, she hummed. She actually hummed, grabbing glasses from the counter as if she hadn't just turned her husband into the Thanksgiving special on Roast of the Year. Daniel exhaled slowly, dried his hands, and finally broke the silence. "So, that little joke at dinner, was that really necessary?" She barely looked up. "Oh, come on, don't be so sensitive. It was just a joke." "A joke. Right. Just a joke," he repeated, nodding slowly. "And humiliating me in front of our friends and family. That's funny to you?" She scoffed. "Please, no one even cared. You're acting like I said something truly offensive." Daniel clenched his jaw. Oh, he cared. He cared a lot. And maybe, just maybe, it was time to start doing something about it. Daniel wasn't a man who lost his temper easily. Oh no. He was the kind of guy who let things slide, laughed off little insults, and convinced himself that it wasn't worth the fight. But that night, as he lay in bed staring at the ceiling, he realized something. He was done being the punchline of Vanessa's jokes. She had made a mistake, a big one, not just because she embarrassed him in front of everyone, but because she was so sure he wouldn't do anything about it. Well, she was about to learn otherwise. The next morning, Daniel got up earlier than usual, not because he wanted to, but because he couldn't stand being in the same bed with her any longer. The warmth that used to be there? Gone. The idea of reaching for her, even absent-mindedly? Absolutely repulsive. Vanessa was still asleep, blissfully unaware that her husband was officially on the road to not giving a damn. He got dressed, grabbed his keys, and walked out the door without making coffee, without checking emails, without following any of the routines that used to make up his predictable, Vanessa-approved life. Instead, he drove straight to the gym. Now, to be fair, Daniel hadn't stepped foot in a gym in, well, let's just say the membership card in his wallet had the logo of a gym that had gone out of business 5 years ago. But that wasn't the point. The point was, he was done being the guy she took for granted. The first few days were brutal. His muscles screamed in protest. His lungs were offended at the very idea of cardio. And the only thing heavier than the weights were the regrets of every bad meal choice he had ever made. But he kept going, because every rep, every drop of sweat was not just about getting in shape. It was about reclaiming something he had lost. And at home? Oh, Vanessa noticed. At first, she didn't say much, just side-eyed him when he came home from the gym, her gaze lingering longer than usual. He caught her staring at him when he walked past her in a fitted t-shirt, a huge improvement from his usual I give up on life oversized hoodies. Then, one evening, she finally said it. "You've been going to the gym a lot lately," she commented, her tone light, too light. Daniel twisted the cap off his water bottle and took a sip. "Yeah." She waited like she expected him to say more. When he didn't, she forced a small laugh. "What brought that on?" He shrugged, leaning against the counter. Felt like it was time for a change. And, oh, the look on her face. For the first time in years, Vanessa looked uncertain, like she didn't quite recognize the man standing in front of her. Good. Daniel didn't need her approval anymore. That's what scared her the most. Daniel wasn't doing this for her. That much was clear. And that's what really rattled Vanessa. At first, she tried to act like she didn't care. She shrugged off his gym visits, ignored the fact that he wasn't asking for her opinion on things anymore, and continued scrolling through her phone as if nothing had changed. But Daniel saw the way she watched him now. When he came home from work, she glanced up a little longer than usual. When his phone buzzed, she suddenly seemed interested in what he was doing. When he walked past her, she noticed, not just in a casual, "Oh, that's my husband" way, but in a wait. When did he start looking like that? Way. And he? He didn't give her the satisfaction of acknowledging it. One evening, he was buttoning up his shirt to go out, something he never used to do without checking with her first, when Vanessa leaned against the bedroom doorframe, arms crossed, her expression sharp. "Where are you going?" she asked, her voice light but too controlled. Daniel adjusted his watch and didn't look up. Out. With who? He finally met her gaze through the mirror. Some friends from work. She let out a short, humorless laugh, shaking her head. "You never used to go out like this." "Yeah," he said simply. "I guess I didn't." And that hit her. Hard. Her eyes narrowed. "Right. And I suppose now you're just making all these decisions on your own?" Daniel raised a brow, buttoning his cuff. "Isn't that what adults do?" Vanessa scoffed, pushing off the doorframe. "Oh, don't give me that. A few months ago you couldn't even pick a damn shirt without asking me if it looked good. And now suddenly you're just deciding to go out with your friends without my approval?" Daniel turned to face her fully, his lips twitching into a smirk. "Wow, so I needed your approval before I could have a social life?" Her mouth opened, then closed, then opened again, like a fish realizing it had just been yanked out of the water. "That's not what I—" But he was already walking past her, grabbing his keys off the dresser. "Don't wait up," he said over his shoulder before heading out the door. And Vanessa? She just stood there, gripping her arms, realizing for the first time that she was no longer in control. Vanessa was pissed. Oh, she tried to hide it. But Daniel could see the way her jaw clenched every time he left the house without asking for her opinion first. He saw the way she hovered when his phone buzzed, how she suddenly started casually walking into the room whenever he was getting dressed. She didn't like this new version of him. Because for years, Vanessa had been the center of his world. Everything Daniel did was filtered through her approval. If she didn't like a shirt, he changed it. If she didn't want him to go out, he stayed home. If she made a joke at his expense, he laughed it off. Not anymore. Now he came home from the gym looking better than he had in years. His clothes fit better, his posture was straighter, and his confidence? That was the real transformation. And Vanessa? Oh, she was starting to panic. It started with little things. She suddenly started texting him more during the day. "Hey, just checking in. What time will you be home?" Since when did she care? Then she started being nice, suspiciously nice. One evening, Daniel came home to find the dinner table actually set. Candles, real plates, not takeout containers, and a home-cooked meal that he hadn't seen in years. "Wow," he said, eyeing the setup. Are we expecting guests? Vanessa forced a smile. I just thought it'd be nice to have dinner together. You know, like old times. Daniel looked at the beautifully plated steak, then at Vanessa's overly bright expression. Oh, he knew exactly what she was doing. She was trying to reel him back in. And while old Daniel might have melted at the gesture, new Daniel just took a bite, nodded, and said, "This is nice." That's it. No grand display of gratitude. No emotional speech about how much he appreciated her effort. Just a neutral statement. And that bothered her. Because for the first time he wasn't chasing her approval. Later that night she tried again. Vanessa had set the perfect trap. A nice dinner, candles, wine. A rare, out-of-nowhere affectionate touch. All classic, let me reel my husband back in before he realizes he's better off without me tactics. And for a brief second, Daniel almost let himself fall for it. After all, it had been a long time since she had made an effort, since she had wanted him, since she had looked at him like something other than a convenient doormat. But then she went in for the kill. As they sat together on the couch, Vanessa scooted closer, resting her hand on his knee. She trailed her fingers up his thigh, her voice suddenly low and smooth. "We should go upstairs," she murmured. Daniel turned his head, blinking at her. Was she serious? After everything? After humiliating him in front of everyone at Thanksgiving? After making him feel like an embarrassment for years? Now she wanted him? Now she was acting like a loving wife? He let out a dry, humorless laugh, shaking his head. "Wow," he muttered, rubbing his jaw. "So suddenly you want to sleep with me? What happened, Vanessa? Did you forget what you said in front of our friends and family?" Her expression faltered. "Daniel, no, remind me." He cut her off, his voice sharp now. "What was it again?" "Oh, yeah. Can't say the same for what happens in our bedroom. That's what you said, right? But now, all of a sudden, you want this useless guy?" Vanessa stiffened. And then? Oh, she flipped. Her eyes darkened, her lips curled into that condescending smirk he had seen so many times before. "Please," she scoffed, "don't act like I was lying. We both know I was just telling the truth. You were never exactly impressive, Daniel." Ah, there it was. The real Vanessa. Not the suddenly affectionate wife, not the woman who was pretending to care. This was the woman who had been chipping away at his self-worth for years. And just like that, the last bit of patience he had for her was gone. Daniel exhaled, shaking his head with a smirk of his own. "You know what, Vanessa? You had your chance, and you blew it." He stood up, ready to walk away. But Vanessa, oh, she was not handling this rejection well, because suddenly she was on her feet too. And in one fluid, unhinged motion, she grabbed the wine glass off the table and hurled it across the room. Shattered glass rained onto the floor, red wine splattering against the walls like a crime scene. Daniel turned, arching a brow. Wow, mature. But she wasn't done. Oh no. She stormed toward the dining table, grabbing the first plate she could reach and smashing it against the wall. "Are you happy now?" she shouted. Daniel let out a slow, amused breath, watching her like a scientist observing a wild animal losing its mind in a cage. "Vanessa," he said calmly, "I think you might be the one who's overreacting here." Another plate. Smash. "You think you're so much better now, don't you?" she shrieked. "Going to the gym, dressing differently, acting all confident? Like that changes who you are. Like that makes you a man." Daniel tilted his head, stuffing his hands into his pockets. "Well, considering you're the one having a meltdown because I don't want to sleep with you, I'd say it's working pretty damn well." Her face turned red. She was seething. But Daniel? He was done. "Go ahead. Break all the plates, Vanessa," he said casually. "But that's not going to change the fact that I'm done playing your games." And with that, he turned on his heel and walked away, leaving her standing there in the wreckage of her own destruction. For the first time in years, she was the one left alone. And Daniel? He had never felt more in control. The sound of breaking plates still echoed through the house as Daniel walked upstairs, but But he didn't stop, didn't flinch, didn't turn around, let her throw her tantrum. She could smash every dish they owned for all he cared. It wouldn't change a damn thing, because something had shifted. Before, Vanessa's rage would have meant something. It would have gotten to him. He would have apologized just to keep the peace. He would have tried to smooth things over, to reassure her, to make things normal again. But not this time. This time he was enjoying watching her lose her grip. By the time he reached the bedroom, he could still hear her downstairs, pacing, muttering, seething. Good. Let her sit in it. Let her feel what it was like to be powerless. Daniel calmly took off his watch, placed it on the dresser, and started getting ready for bed like it was just another Tuesday. But then, oh, of course, he heard her stomping up the stairs. A few seconds later, Vanessa stormed into the room like a hurricane in designer sweatpants. "You're just gonna walk away," she snapped. Daniel sighed, unbuttoning his shirt. "Yep," she scoffed. "Are you serious right now?" He looked at her, completely unbothered. "Vanessa, you just threw a plate at the wall because I wouldn't sleep with you. Yeah, I'd say I'm serious." Her nostrils flared. "I threw a plate because you're being a self-absorbed, arrogant ass." Daniel smirked. Oh, this was fun now. "Arrogant?" he repeated. "Huh, that's funny. Because for years I was just a boring, predictable doormat, right? But now that I actually have some confidence, suddenly I'm arrogant?" Vanessa folded her arms. "You're acting like you're some big shot now, like you're too good for me." Daniel laughed under his breath. Too good for her? That was rich. "Maybe I finally just realized my worth," he said coolly. And oh, that hit her right in the ego. Because Vanessa had spent years making sure Daniel never realized his worth. She had chipped away at his confidence, made him second-guess himself, made him feel lucky to be with her. And now? Now he wasn't begging for her attention. Now he wasn't chasing her approval. Now he was the one walking away. Vanessa's lips pressed into a thin line. Her hands curled into fists. She was losing him, and she knew it. But instead of admitting it, instead of apologizing, she did what she always did. She tried to flip the script. "You know what?" she sneered. "Fine, walk away, but don't come crawling back to me when you realize no one else wants you." Daniel tilted his head, chuckling. Ah, the classic last-ditch insult. "Yeah," he said, grabbing a pillow from the bed. "I'll take my chances." And with that he turned, walked past her, and, for the first time ever, went to sleep on the couch. Not because she kicked him out, not because he felt guilty, but because he didn't want to be anywhere near her anymore. And that was when Vanessa realized she had already lost him. Vanessa didn't sleep that night. Daniel could hear her moving around upstairs, pacing, opening and closing drawers with just a little too much force, probably waiting for him to come crawling back. But he didn't. He stretched out on the couch, arms behind his head, staring at the ceiling with the kind of peace he hadn't felt in years. By morning, the house was too quiet. No forced small talk, no passive-aggressive remarks, no fake morning kisses just for show. When he finally got up, showered and got dressed, Vanessa was already in the kitchen, sitting at the table with her untouched coffee, phone in hand, scrolling furiously. Oh yeah, she was pissed. "Good morning," he said casually, grabbing a mug. No response. Ah, the silent treatment, one of her classic moves. He almost laughed. It was adorable that she thought that would work on him now. Vanessa finally spoke, but she didn't look up from her phone. "So, what's the plan? You gonna keep sulking on the couch forever?" Daniel took a sip of his coffee, unfazed. Not sulking, just making different choices. Now she did look up, her eyes sharp. Oh, right. New Daniel, the guy who suddenly has a backbone. She leaned back in her chair, arms crossed. "So what now? You gonna go run off and have a midlife crisis? Buy a motorcycle? Get a younger girlfriend?" Daniel smirked. "Funny, I don't recall saying I needed anyone to feel good about myself." Vanessa scoffed. "Please, You think you're some kind of prize now, just because you go to the gym and put on a fitted shirt? He shrugged. Hey, seems like it's bothering you more than me. Her jaw clenched. She hated this. Hated that she wasn't in control anymore. Well, enjoy your little ego trip while it lasts, she snapped. Because at the end of the day, you're still just... She stopped herself, taking a slow breath, forcing a tight smile. You know what? Never mind. Daniel chuckled. Oh, he knew exactly what she wanted to say. He was still just the same loser she had always looked down on. Too bad for her. He didn't believe that anymore. He set his coffee down and met her gaze. You know, Vanessa, for years, you made me feel like I needed to work for your approval. Like I had to prove something to you, just to be worth your time. He let the words settle, watching the way her lips pressed together. But here's the thing. I don't need your validation anymore. And that scares the hell out of you. Her expression flickered just for a second. Then she rolled her eyes. You're so dramatic. Daniel smiled. No, I'm just done. And for the first time since their marriage started falling apart, Vanessa didn't have a response. Daniel could see it happening in real time. Vanessa cracking. At first, she tried to play it cool, acting like she wasn't affected, rolling her eyes, tossing out sarcastic comments like she always did. But he knew better now. That was just the mask she wore to hide the fact that she was panicking, because she could feel it. The shift, the loss of control, the fact that Daniel wasn't reacting the way he used to. And nothing terrified her more than realizing she didn't have power over him anymore. That night, after another tense, silent evening, Daniel grabbed his keys and started heading for the door. Where are you going? Vanessa blurted out. He didn't even hesitate. Out! She stood up from the couch. Out where? He smirked, amused. Since when do you care? Vanessa let out a bitter laugh. Oh, please, you think I don't see what's going on? You start dressing better, spending more time at the gym, suddenly having plans every other night. You think I'm stupid? Daniel turned, raising a brow. No, I think you're realizing you don't get to control me anymore. And that was the final straw. Vanessa snapped. You're such an idiot, she hissed, her face twisting in frustration. You think you're this whole new person? That you've suddenly become someone important? You're still just Daniel, the same boring, predictable guy you've always been. You'll never be anything more than that. Daniel just smiled. Oh, how predictable. That's cute, Vanessa, he said, completely unfazed. You're so desperate to make me feel small, aren't you? Because if I don't, you'll have to face the truth. You're the one who's scared. Her face went red. I am not scared. Daniel tilted his head. Really? Then why are you acting like this? For the first time, Vanessa looked lost, like she had nothing left to say, because the truth was staring her in the face. She had already lost him. Daniel sighed, shaking his head. Look, Vanessa, I'm not going to fight with you. I just don't care enough anymore. And with that, he walked out the door, leaving her standing there, stunned, furious, and completely alone. Daniel didn't come home until late that night. Not because he was doing anything reckless, but because he simply didn't care to rush back. For years, he had moved through life on Vanessa's schedule, bending over backward to avoid arguments, staying home when she wanted, going where she wanted, living in the world that she dictated. But now he was reclaiming his own damn time, and Vanessa hated it. When he finally stepped through the door, she was waiting. Not in her usual I'm better than you stance, but sitting at the kitchen table, staring at the countertop like it held all the answers to her life's problems. The lights were dimmed. A half-full glass of wine sat next to her, and for the first time in a long time, she looked nervous. Daniel shut the door behind him, tossing his keys onto the counter. You're still up? She looked up then, her expression unreadable. Yeah. A pause. I made dinner, she added, her voice softer than usual. Daniel glanced at the untouched plate across from her. Oh, so this was the next move. First the insults, then the rage, and now? Now she was trying to play the nostalgia card. He leaned against the counter, arms crossed. You expecting me to sit down and pretend like nothing's happened? Vanessa swallowed, forcing a smile. I just thought we should talk. Daniel let out a breath, shaking his head. Vanessa, you don't want to talk. You want to reset. You want to sweep everything under the rug so we can go back to me being the guy who puts up with your crap while you sit there pretending you've done nothing wrong. She flinched, her fingers tightening around the stem of her wine glass. That's not true. Really? Daniel challenged. Then let's talk. Let's actually talk. Let's talk about how you spent years tearing me down, how you humiliated me in front of our friends, how you made me feel like I wasn't good enough, even when I gave you everything. He stepped closer, voice steady. Let's talk about why, after all that, you suddenly want to fix things now. Vanessa's jaw tensed. She had no answer for that. Because they both knew the truth. She didn't suddenly care. She was just scared of what happened when Daniel stopped caring about her. Her lips parted as if she wanted to argue, to find some way to turn this around. But nothing came out. And in that moment, Daniel knew. This was it. The power shift was complete. He wasn't the one begging. He wasn't the one scrambling to fix things. She was. And for once, he wasn't going to save her from the consequences of her own actions. Daniel exhaled slowly. I think we both know where this is headed. Vanessa's throat bobbed as she swallowed. Daniel? No, he cut her off. You don't get to make this my fault. He gestured between them. This is because of you. You built this. You tore it down. And now you want to act like we can just glue it back together? He shook his head. I'm done, Vanessa. Her face crumpled, but Daniel didn't feel guilty. Not anymore, because this wasn't his loss. It was hers. Vanessa sat there, frozen. No more clever remarks, no more smug smirks, no more control. Daniel had finally said the words she had been trying so hard to ignore. I'm done. For years, she had chipped away at him, convinced he would always be there, convinced he would always stay, no matter what she said, no matter how she treated him. But now, as he stood there, calm, completely unfazed, it hit her. She had lost him. Completely. You're serious, she whispered, like she still couldn't believe it. Daniel just nodded. Yeah, I am. Silence. Then, desperation. Daniel, she tried again, her voice unsteady. Look, I know I messed up. She took a breath, forcing her usual confidence back into her tone. I mean, this is just a rough patch. Every marriage has... Vanessa. His voice was gentle, but final. This isn't a rough patch, he said. This is the end. She sucked in a sharp breath, blinking rapidly. You're really just walking away? He tilted his head. No, Vanessa. You walked away a long time ago. I'm just finally catching up. And that was the truth. He had spent years holding on to something that was already broken, years making excuses, convincing himself that maybe things would get better, that maybe he was the problem. But he wasn't. The problem was that Vanessa had stopped loving him long before he stopped loving her. The difference? She thought she could treat him like garbage forever. She thought he'd never leave, but she was wrong. Daniel let out a slow breath and turned toward the door. I'll send over the paperwork. You can have the house. I don't need it. Vanessa sat up straighter, eyes flashing. Wait, just like that? You're just leaving me everything? Daniel smiled. Yeah, you always wanted control, Vanessa. Now you have it. Enjoy it. And with that, he walked out. No yelling, no fights, no dramatic final speeches, just quiet freedom. And as he stepped outside, breathing in the cool night air, he realized something. He wasn't sad. He wasn't heartbroken. He wasn't even angry anymore. Because Vanessa wasn't his problem anymore. For the first time in years, Daniel was finally putting himself first. And damn, did it feel good.